Hello, everybody. How are you all today? We're so glad to be with you. We are excited about today's people chat. And so, in just a moment, Crystal Speed will be joining us and we will have a great conversation. We're really excited about today's topic. It's something that I think applies to all organizational leaders. So we're really looking forward to digging into this topic with you. If this is your first time joining, my name is Lori Ruffin, and I am the founder of the COO team. And here we have Crystal Speed.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Crystal Speed, your HR strategist, and so happy to be able to join you guys this afternoon as we have this week's People Chat.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So we're really excited about today's topic. We're going to be discussing 5 mistakes that organizations make when it comes to strategic planning. And so we are really thinking that this is a great subject for us to dig into. Believe it or not, 50% of organizations are operating without a strategic plan. And so for the remaining 50, while I applaud them, there are some pitfalls that we can stumble on that we want to help leaders avoid. And so, whichever category you find yourself in, we definitely hope that some of the things that we discuss today will be helpful in your journey. And so, as we get started, and Crystal, I'd love for you to just kind of kick us off on where some of the things that you have noticed. But I'll say this: if you are a leader, exhibit your leadership and do us a favor and do your fellow leaders a favor and share this. We would love for you to post this on your page or share it with other leaders that you know, so that they can hear about these mistakes and avoid the pitfalls, so that we all can grow together and impact and influence as we seek to serve others. Okay?
Okay, excellent. And
So Crystal, yeah.
Sure, sorry for cutting you off. And I also
Go
see
ahead.
that Thomas Childs is watching. Hey, Thomas. Hopefully, definitely drop any questions or any comments as we're going through. So, and it came to me as you were talking, Lori, that maybe we talk a little bit about kind of what our experience has been with strategic planning as well, and I'll share that within this story. So I'm an HR strategist, but have had the opportunity to work with a couple different organizations within a strategic planning process. Most notably when I was working in the IT government contracting realm, and we did a very calculated and I would say regular strategic planning process that helped inform the entire year. So the strategic planning process was really, really good in that we had all of the key leaders in the room and had topics of discussion to really help get to the places where we needed to focus our energy and really do some planning around for the coming year. And then that process helped inform the rest of the year. So our quarterly management reviews and our monthly check-ins, all of it flowed from that particular process. So it's so great to think about if you take a little time on the front end to get your strategic plan down, it can help inform everything else that you do as an organization and then really help keep you on track. So working in the IT government contracting firm was an experience that gave a lot of clarity and practice around the strategic planning process, but also have worked with nonprofit organizations in designing their strategic plans and really thinking about engaging the board in that process and being able to have the expertise of all of the leaders that need to be in the room to be able to do that. But we're going to talk about some of the 5 of the big mistakes that organizations are doing when they have a strategic plan or within their strategic planning process. And the first big mistake, which you hinted on before, is they don't even have one. So there's 50% of organizations, as you mentioned, that don't even have a strategic plan. My experience has been, and you chime in if this is the same or different, that A lot of organizations that don't have strategic plans is because the process seems so very daunting. Where it's like, where do we even begin? You know, strategic plan sounds like this huge document where, you know, you
It's
lay out,
overwhelming.
yeah, lay out any and everything. And a lot of organizations that I've either been a part of or had the opportunity to support in a consultancy role, when they didn't have a strategic plan, it was really because it was very overwhelming. It was a very daunting um, prospect. Is that what you found in your experience as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. I think sometimes it's just a lack of exposure or experience with creating a plan. And I specifically can think of an organization that reached out to me about a year after having a plan. They were, I would say, the exception to the rule in that they were able to access funds to get started. And so they quickly hired and they quickly got to work. But a year into their existence as an organization without really having a strategic plan that really detailed how the pieces fit together, they had chaos. They had
Mm-hmm.
chaos, they had low morale. And so by the time the CO team was brought in, myself and some others to really help develop their strategic plan, it was kind of out of a sense of desperation and despair and frustration for having kind of just been the team had been bumping up against each other um, with a lot of disconnected systems without really having a clearly defined unifying vision. And so in this particular organization, you're right. They were experts in their field of expertise, but not in strategic planning. And so they
Mm-hmm.
really didn't have a framework to use to tackle that monster. And so thankfully, we were able to come in and help them. And so it just was really amazing, Crystal, for them to go from not having a strategic plan to having one. There were a lot of ahas as we wrestled through the different pieces of, the strategic plan. And we're like, oh, that's the reason why we're frustrated. That's the reason why we have this conflict. That's the reason why, we don't really know where our money is going, and we're not even sure about our sustainability because we don't have a baseline that really unites us all. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I've seen in my experience. And I think the good thing is we don't have to be, and we're not going to be experts in everything, but we can leverage the expertise of those who have experience and expertise to help us, in our particular area.
Mm-hmm.
So Kendra actually asked a great question. How often should we be tracking progress against the plan? And so that is so funny. That leads us right into the second one, which is often those that have a strategic plan, it's obsolete. It's outdated or generic or misaligned. And so I think that part of that is really, it's important to have a rhythm. So I think I always encourage teams and leaders to decide what is the planning time horizon that you want to tackle with your strategic plan. And so the increments that I'm most familiar with are, 12-month, 2-year, or 3-year. And of course, in a 3-year sense, it's really hard to, like, nobody can forecast what the weather is going to be like 3 years from now. But if we have like a trajectory of where we want to be in 3 years, then we can backtrack. And the closer we are to right now, where it can be more detailed. And so once that strategic plan is put in place, it's really important to, as you asked about, Kendra, is to go back and check on it like quarterly, at
Mm-hmm.
least, to say how it should trickle down to our behaviors. And so a good strategic plan will not just be kind of at a high level, but it'll go all the way down to like tactical level, like who's doing what and when, and that sort of thing. And so I like to for teams to have like a quarterly checkpoint for like a big overall alignment conversation, but there should also be monthly milestones, like how are we tracking against the work that we're supposed to be doing, because the plans will kind of start once we have a strategic plan. It starts at a really high level, but then it kind of goes down to be really granular. So that's how I would answer that question.
Right. And I would just echo that because in my experience, same thing, thinking about the quarterly reviews to really be able to say, you know, this is how we're doing within these particular areas. And also being able to say, are these still appropriate milestones that we have in place, and just making changes as necessary, but also just understanding, well, if you're not at that particular place where you expect it to be, what changes need to occur. And I also agree with what you said about the strategic plan should be trickling down to what you're doing on a day by day basis, and really help inform the work that your team is doing. And on a monthly basis, being able to really understand how are these contributions, how are the deliverables, how are the milestones really impacting our strategic plan, our strategic direction, and really helping drive us forward as an organization. So I'm totally aligned with you, and based upon the experience that I've had with various organizations, that has worked really, really well. And I think, sorry, I was going to say, I think it's also important to recognize that individuals at all lines or at all levels of the organization need to understand how they are impacting, their actions impact the success of the organization, and really align to the strategic plan that the organization has.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that definitely makes sense. And so, the third piece about where people make mistakes on a strategic plan, I would say, is cutting corners, right? Not investing the time. And so a lot of times we're so busy doing the work of an organization that we're like, we don't want to slow down and actually stop and put together a plan. Or so maybe we just we'll just do a SWOT analysis in a meeting, and then we'll just say, yeah, that's our strategic plan. It takes a little bit more time than that. It definitely takes a little bit more time with that. Have you seen scenarios where people have kind of done some strategic thinking, but it hasn't been comprehensive enough to really be helpful and actually get to that, from that high level view of where we're going all the way down to the tactical level?
Mhm. Yeah, so I would say I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done not so well. And in the not so well scenarios, it really was the fact that not enough time was really given to the process. When it's been done well, one, there's been like some advanced preparation and discussions ahead of time, so that when we got to the strategic planning session, and usually it was over a few days, when we got to that strategic planning session, people were already thinking in a way that helped drive the conversations forward. So I think strategic planning doesn't happen just like in one day or like in a 1 hour meeting. No, it takes much more than that. But also, as much as you can start socializing some of the ideas ahead of time and getting people at a common place, so that when you come to the strategic planning session itself, you have a really good kind of base level foundation that you're starting from. And like I said, it takes more than like a 2 hour, 1 day session to really be able to knock out a strategic plan. It takes dedicated time and attention, and really being able to do a deep dive into where have we been, what has worked well for us, and then thinking about present and future. And I love how you mentioned before that, being able to engage the right expertise to really help the process. Sometimes I think a lot of people think, oh, strategic plans. Oh, there's a template for that. I can do that. Or, we did this in some other organization, but not everybody is and has the expertise in the strategic planning arena. And so really being able to invest in the right resource is really important, and being able to have a process that will glean the best thinking from your team is really important as well. So that's what I would kind
Yeah.
of add there.
Something else that I've seen too, again, a lot of times people can get, anytime you focus your attention towards something, there's a potential that you can make it better. So I would always encourage people, if it's a difference between not having strategic planning, having one, like have one, do the work, But one place, and I think that something just to kind of drill a little bit deeper into something that you mentioned, is the importance of having outside expertise. I have found that sometimes it's helpful to have someone from the outside of an organization provide objective perspective. to ask the questions that the people within the organizations either don't want to answer, don't want to ask, or don't want to, just don't want to think about.
Mhm.
So I think that having that third party perspective throughout the way, throughout the journey of developing one is something that's really, really important. Um, I think it's good for us to talk about like the fourth piece, which is a big mistake that happens, not having the right people at the table. And so, and this kind of ties into somebody from our audience that posted the question, how do we ensure buy-in into a strategic plan? That is really, really important. So something that I like to do when I'm facilitating strategic planning sessions is to do a pre-questionnaire and have everybody, like all parts of the organization, kind of answer the questions and then come together, so that when we're going through a group experience with the organization, um, everybody can kind of weigh in. So one thing that I think is really important, a good strategic planning process is not necessarily a democratic process. There are leaders that are accountable and are responsible for what happens within the organization. Just even thinking about nonprofit structure, the executive director actually serves at the request and bequest of the board. The board has the ability to hire and fire an executive director, and I think that sometimes people don't really understand that. And so the staff then are serving at the request of the executive director, and so it's important that at these different levels that the people understand that. Collaboration is important, buy-in is important, but then also leadership and responsibility and who's accountable, like where does the buck stop, that's also
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
And so I think that in a healthy organization, we have all voices at the table, and we're able to kind of wrestle through and get the feedback and the perspective of all of the participants, but then decisions have to be made, and often the decisions have to rest with the people um, who own the responsibility for said decisions. And
Mhm.
so that way, if the buck stops with them, they own pulling the trigger on, like, okay, out of the five things that we're going to do, we've got to choose one. Okay, we've heard from everyone, and then as a leader, I own the decision on choosing this one, but I also kind of own, you know, if it doesn't work out well, I own that. But if it does turn out well, then I own that, and I also can, of course, share credit with the people who have invested into that process. So,
Mhm.
those are some thoughts that I just have around, who to engage and have at the table.
Right.
How
Well,
about you?
I like how you mentioned the pre-questionnaire and really being able to get feedback, perspective throughout the organization. And I think once you have your strategic planning session, being able to, or the process that you're engaging, being able to have representation from all areas of the organization is really important. I kind of giggled, but I agree with you where you said that it's not necessarily a democratic process, but it should be a collaborative one in that,
Yes.
sometimes we may have ideas in the back of our head coming into it of what we expect. But really being open to the process, being open to listening from the others who are in the room and at the table and engaged in the process, as well as like that feedback from the pre-questionnaire, and being able to then, in a collaborative fashion, see what is in the best interest of the organization, and really being able to have your strategic direction flow from that. Um, yeah, so I pretty much just kind of co-sign on all of that, but that's what I've seen work really well, just being able to have representation from throughout the organization and having it as a very collaborative process versus coming in there with a key with already an idea of what is going to happen, but being open to how it may unfold because things may change. You may find that the strategic direction that the organization needs to go in um, changes based upon being informed by the people who are there at the table.
Definitely. And you mentioned just even your comments on this last mistake, I think segues us very well into the fifth mistake that people make, and that is um, remembering that a strategic plan is an evergreen document. And so it needs to be revisited, over time. It's a living document that needs to evolve. The dynamics within and external to an organization are ever changing. And so we don't want to kind of have a rhythm of changing where we create a strategic plan, let's say in January, and then February, we're doing the process all over again. So not that soon would we want to kind of revisit it in terms of like redoing it, but we want to know that it's not a set it and forget it sort of thing where, like you said, thermometer, and then like, we're just going to have it here for the whole, you know, foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a strategic plan and you've not looked at it or edited it in, the last 2, 3, 4, 5, oh my gosh, getting outside of that number is just like really insane. We're probably missing something. There's something that's happening that we're not probably accounting for if we haven't checked in and really revisited what were our strategic priorities, what were we focusing on, what were we working on then. Is that still relevant today? Do we
Mm-hmm.
have do we still have the same environmental needs around us? How has the marketplace changed? How has our team changed? How has the needs, changed? And all of those sorts of things. Are we in the same financial position, or have things changed with that? Do we need the same systems, or have our needs changed with that? So I think that it's really important to revisit that over time.
Mm-hmm.
I will just share, and I would love to hear from you, Crystal. I just want to share that one of the organizations that I'm serving now made a tremendous amount of progress in that last year. Basically, for 3 to 4 years, they had really been operating very nicely in their core offer and in their core audience. And they begin to say, wait a minute, as we're listening to the marketplace, we're seeing other needs that we're not addressing. And then we're also wanting to ask what's next for the people that we've been serving in this particular way. And so investing some time and strategy and really thinking through that, um, the organization is now in a place where in 2019 they're launching two different kind of continuations of their it's based off the foundation of their first offer, but they're serving new needs, new
Mm-hmm.
audiences, as well as the existing audience in a new way. And all of that is through going through a strategic planning process and really saying, how do we discern what's next for us? And so I'm really, really excited to see that unfold. I think we've got great things ahead, and we are now in conversations. Now that the strategy is set, we're
Mm-hmm.
now in conversations around getting the systems in alignment to support those strategies. And so, these are the spaces that excite me. But yeah, like I just wanted just to say that that's an example of not becoming complacent at the risk
Mm-hmm.
of becoming obsolete through not paying attention to the strategic plan and seeing it as a living, evolving process as well as document.
Right. And I think that was an excellent example of, how you have a multi-year plan that really helps inform the maybe annual goals as well as what you're doing on a quarterly basis and then trickling down to the day-to-day operations. I really love when organizations see their strategic plan as something that helps inform what they're doing. So it's not something separate or other, but it's really kind of the starting point to really be able to help focus the day-to-day operations and what the organization is doing. As you mentioned, it also helps inform the systems that you'll need to have in place in the process. And it's just really helpful in streamlining and aligning so that you are sharper in your focus as well as being able to make greater impact with the people that you serve. So yeah, it's not something that just sits on the shelf and gathers dust. It really helps inform what you do as an organization and how you behave and perform as leaders. So.
Definitely, definitely. Yes. Well, I feel like we've covered, the 5 mistakes that organizations can encounter when they are doing strategic planning. So, number one, not having a strategic plan. Number two, allowing it to become obsolete through it being outdated. I think that was number two. Number
Mhm.
three, spending not spending enough time and investing time in actually developing it and bringing in the expertise that might be needed for it. Four, not having the right people at the table, and then five, not allowing it to be a living document.
Right.
These are all places, mistakes that leaders can make when it comes to strategic planning. And so thankfully, we do have, a resource that's available. The COO Team Strategy Academy is a process, a 90-day process where we walk together with nonprofit leaders to really develop a strategic plan within 90 days. And so we meet with the executive leader and potentially one other person, and they're able to take the learnings from that process and vet it with their teams and get the input and develop that strategic plan so that they have a roadmap for the foreseeable future. So we're
Mhm.
really excited about that offering. It's something that we launched back in 2018. It's helping organizations already, and so we just want to let you know, if you are interested in that and you want to sign up, you can sign up for our next. You can sign up for the wait list for our next cohort by going to www.thecooteam/strategy academy. That is thecooteam.com/strategy academy. If you go there, then you can definitely sign up to be notified for the next learning cohort, the group conversation. So the group experience. So anyway, really glad to be with you, Crystal. It's always great to talk with you about people and organizational needs and
Mhm.
just kind of bounce these things off of each other, because we know that there are a lot of people who have great ideas that are leading great organizations that have such potential to make a lot of impact. And so
Mhm.
I'm glad that we get to come once a week and have these conversations.
Yeah, me too. And I want to thank Kendra for those great questions that she asked. And so, if you're catching the replay and you have any questions, whether something that is stumping you in your organization's strategic planning process, or if it's a helpful hint that you have that has really worked well for your organization, then drop it in the comments. We'd love to be able to continue the conversation and to talk more. And should you need any support, we're here to help you. So again, yes, it was great being with you, Lori, and talking about something that's really exciting to me, strategic planning, and really thinking about how it can help organizations go farther, faster. So until next
Yes.
week, I guess.
Yes. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.